Hello and welcome to our North Church Parent Podcast. We are so glad that you have joined us today. My name is Christian Velez and I am our student pastor here at North Church. Our goal is to prepare you and equip you with resources for raising awesome godly kids. Whether they're newborns or off to college, we want to do our best to prepare you for the journey ahead. We hope and pray that these conversations will prepare you to be the parent that God created you to be. If there is any topic you would love for us to discuss, please email us at parents@north.church. We would love to hear from you. Also, go ahead and subscribe to our channel wherever you're listening, as we will continue to release more and more episodes. Once again, thank you so much for joining us. Let's jump into the conversation. Hello, North Church. Welcome to the North Church Parent Podcast. My name is Christian Velez. I'm the student pastor here at North Church, and I have the amazing privilege to have today in this episode Clint and Lindsey Smith. And Clint and Lindsey Smith have been a couple that I've been watching from afar. One of the things that I love is how they are raising their children. They have children in our kids ministry. Also, they have kids that are out of college, and we're about to hear a little bit more here in a second. But Clint and Lindsey, thank you so much for joining us today. How are you guys doing?
We're doing great.
Doing good.
Well, I want to say thank you so much for coming into our podcast today, and I want to know a little bit about you guys before we jump in. And I'm gonna toss this to Christian. Christian is our podcast producer, and he's gonna have our icebreaker question for us.
Hey, Clint and Lindsey, so glad y'all are joining us for this parent podcast. Excited about this conversation. My icebreaker for you is, what was your first date? What was your first date? I'm going to throw it back to y'all.
Well, our first date was actually on a Valentine's Day.
Yes.
And we went
2007.
We went to a steak dinner with two of our best friends, Brett and Lisa Bynum. And I went all out.
He did.
I went all out. Sent flowers, right?
Yeah, to the restaurant. We dressed up. We didn't really do that kind of thing. We just always wore jeans and tennis shoes. But he dressed up, had a button down and slacks, and I got my hair all fixed and makeup on. So, yeah, it was fancy.
That's awesome.
I'm looking back at those pictures now, Christian, and my hair was big. It was big. I kind of regret that, but I think it looked all right during the time.
I love that. So in this episode, we're talking about blended families. And the scripture that we have anchored this podcast is Proverbs 22:6. Direct your children onto the right path, and when they're old, they will not leave it. And I'm excited to talk to you guys about blended family, because you guys are a blended family, and the way that you guys have modeled being a blended family, you guys have shown me the healthy way of having a blended family. But before we go into it, can you tell us a little bit about your family?
Sure. So we have two older boys, Dallas, who is 21, and Jensen, who is 18, and they're my stepsons. And then we have Lila together. She is 10. And then Russell, we fostered him when he was 13 months old, and then adopted him in 2015. And he is also 10. There's 9 months difference between the two.
We've got a lot of activity going on around the house. Super active 4th and 5th grader. And then we just had one of our guys move out of the city to go to college. And that's been quite a bit of an adjustment for us, because he's kind of the talker, the one that keeps everything flowing around the house. And Lindsey's had to make some adjustment to that.
Yes.
It's been a little bit different for us. But we're enjoying this season of life, just making some adjustments and learning as we go.
And how long you guys been married?
14 and a half years.
Something really exciting. I love to tell this to everyone. We share the same anniversary date.
We do.
Yes.
September
do.
23rd, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is. It's
We knew that going in, right?
Yes.
Don't forget that date. You'll get in trouble, man.
So every year, something I do every year on September 23rd, I just kind of joke with Pastor Clint, hey, don't forget, it's your anniversary today.
Yep. I've learned my lessons over the years.
So tell us what you guys have learned as a blended family.
I think, first of all, being a blended family is tough. It takes a lot. I think flexibility, I think consistency, I think commitment. When you ask me that question, flexibility, consistency, and commitment have been key for us. I think some people just don't realize at the end of the day, we make a big deal about things that don't need to be a big deal. And we kind of get consumed by them, and we become very fixed on the idea of what we believe should happen in certain situations.
Can you give me an example of being flexible? How does that look like as a blended family?
Well, I think about Christmas time. I don't know about you, Lindsey, but that's something that's been an adjustment, because when we first got married, Christmas time was a big deal. It's still a big deal to our family, but the way we think of it has had to change with so many people involved now.
Yeah, so going into marriage with two stepsons, like those are things that I didn't think about ahead of time. You have Christmas and you just expect that everyone's going to be there on Christmas Day like it has been, for the last 25 years, up until I was married. But then that's not how it always happens. And so you do have to be flexible, realizing that there are other people involved, grandparents, aunts and uncles. And so you just have to do what's best for your family during that time frame. If the boys couldn't be there with us, then that was just the way it was going to be, and we would celebrate a different time. We had to learn that the date of Christmas wasn't always the important thing. It was just being together whenever we could be together.
That is so good that you say that, because my experience growing up in a blended family, there was no understanding of that. It was like I had to be with this parent or this parent. They made it such a big deal out of they have to be with me, that honestly those dates for me were like, I don't want Christmas because of the tension that it brings. And I feel like it's a lot of times parents don't think about the kids in that moment, because kind of we become selfish a little bit about that.
It's you hit the nail on the head when I talk about commitment there. A lot of people only think of themselves. As parents, it can become very confusing sometimes. You see this even in foster care situations where a biological parent is trying to do whatever they can to work at keeping their children and keeping that relationship. Those things are all of high value, but it breaks my heart when you see someone that's doing it for some of the wrong reasons. You can tell that there's some selfishness, and they're trying to feed their need to have someone else in their life instead of putting kids as priority. That happens in our families all the time too. We just don't realize it. When we begin to put our own motives, feelings, and agendas above our family and our children in particular, then we're being selfish by nature, and we're not staying committed to putting our kids as a priority. That's a big miss.
I was thinking of an example of early on in the first few years of our marriage during Christmas time. The boys had the opportunity to go to Disney World during Christmas time. And like, even though they were going to miss Christmas with us, we had to think, man, they're getting to go to Disney World. Like, that's a great opportunity for them. And so we had to put our wants and desires and think about what would be best for the boys for them to experience that. And so those are just instances that you just have to do what's best for them versus what your inside and intrinsic value of what you think about that you want for yourself.
I think that goes back to that flexibility piece as well. When you're flexible like that, then the family on the other side is going to want to be flexible for you as well. When we have situations where we need to do certain things with our family, it's never been made a big deal. And I think that has been because both sides have been willing to put the kids first and to honor that and do what's best for them.
That is so good. I'm glad that you guys touch on that, and I know it's going to be a blessing for families that are blended, where that flexibility, being flexible with the other parents, the kids also understand that, and it's better for them. I love that you talked about when you said about being selfish. We have to put the kids first.
We do.
And I was reading a quote earlier this week about that the most important relationship you have in your life is your relationship with God, because all of your other relationships will flow out of that. And we want to raise godly children that have a biblical worldview. And I feel that the best way that we can do that is how do we have these conversations with the other parents, and being flexible, being committed and consistent. Now, let's talk about parenting style, because it takes a different parenting style probably for every children. But also, talk to me a little bit about what is your parenting style in your family?
Our parenting style has been pretty consistent over the years. We really take a relational approach.
Good.
We believe that if we can keep relationship and have conversation with our kids, that when they go through hardship of life, that we can be there to help guide them and direct them and support them. One of the things I've learned is you can't control people. From an infant all the way up to the oldest adult, you cannot control people. We as parents are there to guide and direct, not to control. I think sometimes we try to grip kids too much in control, and it usually backfires in things of bitterness and acting out and those kind of things. But when it comes to relationships, something that I've had to adjust, Christian, is that it's not a one-size-fits-all. I tried to parent my children in a one-size-fits-all template.
So that doesn't work?
It does not work. It does not work.
And being a parent is a lot of work. Man.
Things that worked with our first child did not work with our second child. And through our second child, Jensen, I actually learned a lot as a father of the way I approach him and hear from him and let him talk to me and agree on things and walk through certain situations. It was quite a bit different than what I did with Dallas. Dallas would respond to me instantly. And sometimes when I would come at Jensen, he would shell up on me and the conversation would stop. So then my priority, our priority of as a family to keep relationship as a big priority in our lives, that would be squelched because my approach was wrong with him.
Can you give me some other ways that you guys have done this, of like when it comes to family and relationships? What are some other ways that you guys have cultivated that?
Well, I think having our family, our extended family, a part of their lives has made a big impact on them. Every Sunday we do family dinner with Clint's parents, and that's something that they look forward to. Every Sunday they just know that we're going to go to Mimi and Papa's. And then also family vacations, and that's where we have, 20 of us that we usually go to the beach. This year we're going to Colorado, but normally the last 14 years we've gone down to Padre or Florida. And just that time spent together with cousins and aunts and uncles, like those things are priceless. Like we could think sometimes on a selfish side, like we just want to do something with our family and go somewhere cool or somewhere different. But ultimately, like we really enjoy it too. And then just watching our kids experience their cousins, having fun for an entire week. Those are memories that are going to last a lifetime. So we kind of have to step outside of the selfish side of sometimes
That's not
just
easy.
wanting.
Planning a vacation with my wife, just getting her schedule down. It's different. I can imagine
20 people.
But that's an amazing, honestly, example, and kind of like something that you do every year that your kids look forward to. I know Jensen is one of your kids that I spend the most time, because he was here as a freshman when I became the student pastor, and he always talked about Sunday dinner with your family.
Yeah.
To this day, he always say, "Oh, this is what we do," and I will ask him, You like going to that? Because for me, sometimes family, what it means is like a lot of screaming and yelling and fighting. And he talked about how much he loved doing that. And he loved doing it every single week.
And something that's really like a blessing to me is like my parents will go on vacation with his family. Like that we can get along and everyone's just happy to be together. Like we don't make things a big deal because if you have that many people, like there could be some frustrations or whatever. And sometimes there has been, but we just keep on keeping on because we know that the greater good is that this is time that we won't get back.
We don't let drama become a big deal in our lives. I joke with my kids all the time, turn the drama down, you know.
Mainly our 10-year-olds.
Yeah, let's do anything we can to take away unnecessary stress and anxiety and things that aren't needed in life.
That is so good. Lindsey, how has it been being a step parent? Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Well, you know, a lot of times girls dream about like what their future is going to be like. And to be honest, being a step parent wasn't ever in my dream. Looking back now, like I wouldn't trade any of those life lessons for anything, but it's hard. Like, and you know, we've had a good relationship with the boys, mom and stepdad. And I know a lot of people don't have that, but even still, like for me, I am sometimes selfish and I want them to like, I'm trying to think of the words here. I want them to, how would I describe that? I talk to him about this all the time because I can't always like just talk to people and I like cry about it. I get my feelings hurt.
She wants them to notice the little things.
Yeah.
And we talk about this often is sometimes it's not about being a mom or a stepmom. Sometimes it's just raising kids and kids miss things, you know, and they don't realize how they could be hurtful sometimes, even most of the time unintentionally, you know, and that's more of what she's struggled with for the most part. Yeah.
And like I knew going into this that my role was not to be their mom. They already had an awesome mom. My job was to support them and to support their dad so that way we could be a successful family as the Smiths. And so it took a little bit of time and like things like holidays sometimes would, you know, the selfishness would kind of get in there. But then I had to think to myself, what is best for the kids? And that's not always easy to think about because we are selfish in nature, but we chose to take the high road in a lot of situations, just being like everything is what's going to be the best for the kids, which in turn would be the best for our family. So
I think one of the things when we people they have kids really have that mentality of like what is best for the kids, and they see that maturity in you, it helps them to, like I remember as a child, my mom had to be, and I know you guys didn't use this language, but this is kind of what I experienced. My mom had to be the bigger person and allow us to go with my dad and do those things. But to me, I am so grateful that my mom did that, because today I look back and I'm like, well, we have this kind of relationship because it's a sacrifice that my mom made. And because of really like her relationship with God and how she brought God into all of these things, that it allowed me to lean on God more and more. And I think that's something that you guys have done so well, because your kids, when I look at your kids, they're kids that are in love with God. It's not a stage. They want to be in the house of God. They want to serve in the house of God. I joke with Jensen and I text him and I'm like, hey, you remember who I am? I send him, I try to call him on FaceTime and he won't answer, and I just take a screenshot and I put it on Facebook. But every time I hear it's like how much he misses being in this place because of what you guys created created as a family. Before we go, I want to give you guys the space to, what would you guys what would be some advice you give to families that are blended families in the process of becoming a blended family, or maybe that are experiencing hardship in a blended family? Because what I see in you guys, I'm sure that it wasn't easy to build where you guys are at, but I feel like people think, I will never be able to have a healthy relationship with the other parents or with my children. Yeah. What would you guys advise?
Well, I just want to say that, sometimes it makes it seem easy that the kids are great because of what we did, but in reality, it is partly us, but it's partly their mom and stepdad. Yeah. They are great people, and they want the best for their sons too. And so that's what makes it work whenever you have that mentality of let's do what's best for them. So a lot of shout outs go to them as well. I don't know if you want to add to that.
Yeah, just speaking to that relationship, we've both families have decided to put the kids first. So we'll have dinner together after events and do stuff together and celebrate graduations together. We never allowed that to be weird for our kids. And it's crazy how God has blessed that and allowed that to be such a safe place for our kids that we share together, and then the kids from both families as well. It's been a powerful thing. I would also add to that it's not about us. As parents, sometimes going back to the selfishness thing, we get consumed with trying to fulfill our own needs when really we ought to be thinking about our children, what's best. And just a little word to the wise. Most of the time, what's best for your kids in those situations is also best for your family. So you being upset all the time and arguing with other people and digging into things or trying to control or manipulate those things, all it's doing is bringing divisiveness into your own home, first of all. It's also putting divisiveness into the other home, and then it's also destroying your relationship with your children on both sides. Yeah. You're confusing your kids. So we've been committed, so has the boy's mom and stepfather, to never allowing that to happen to our children. And I just want to say to other families out there, maybe you're struggling with this. It can get better, and it starts with you. Your decisions. Maybe you're dealing with someone that's very difficult. You can still begin to decide to have peace in your heart and your mind. Philippians 4 talks about not being anxious for anything, but submitting those things to God. And the peace of God would guard your hearts and minds in Christ Jesus. That's the kind of peace that we pray for. That's the foundation of our marriage. And that's the prayer we're praying with our kids before they go to sleep at night. Give us peace in our hearts. Give us peace in our minds. And I'm praying that for the people that we're talking with right now.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, guys, for joining us and for your wisdom, for sharing your part of your experience, because I know it's going to be a blessing for parents that are maybe going through it right now. I want to encourage anyone that is watching, that is going through this. If you need help, there is different ways that we can do that. Here at North Church, we have groups. We have different things that we can. You don't have to live life alone. You don't have to do this all by yourself. Yeah. And I think for my mother, one of the greatest thing that she did was really going to church and taking us to church. We were able to see godly men. We were able to see, okay, this is not how it's done, but here's how Christ would do it.
It's good.
So don't think that you're doing this by yourself. I want to encourage you to, if you have any topics that you would like for us to touch on the Parent Podcast, you can email us at parent@north.church. We would love to hear from you. Thank you so much for blessing us with this podcast, with this episode. Thank you so much, and we will see you in the next episode.